Who said separation of church and state? Have you ever wondered who said separation of church and state? Hi, I'm Pastor Randy, and in this video, we're going to continue discussing the separation of church and state. Who said it? Where did the phrase come from? Let's go. Who said separation in church of state? First, separation of church and state was said by Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, in a letter he wrote in response to a letter sent to him by the Danbury Baptist Association in October 1801. If you want to know more about the Danbury Baptist Association and the letter that they sent to Thomas Jefferson, watch this video here. Here's the text of the letter that President Jefferson sent in response to the letter sent to him by the Danbury Baptist Association. To the Danbury Baptist Association, January 1st, 1802. Gentlemen, the affectionate sentiments of esteem and approbation which you are so good as to express towards me on behalf of the Danbury Baptist Association give me the highest satisfaction. My duties dictate a faithful and zealous pursuit of the interests of my constituents. Did you hear that? President Jefferson said that his duties required him to attend to the interests of his constituents. Can we say the same thing today? That's something to consider. My duties dictate a faithful and zealous pursuit of the interests of my constituents, and in proportion as they are persuaded of my fidelity to those duties, the discharge of them becomes more and more pleasing. Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions. Did you hear that? Thomas Jefferson was of the opinion that the legitimate powers of government only reach to the actions of people, not to their thoughts or opinions. That the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Thus means because of this, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. Adhering to this expression of the supreme will of the nation in behalf of the rights of conscience. Notice, this phrase was used in behalf of the rights of conscience of the citizens of the nation, and not in an effort to inhibit or take away the rights of the citizens of the nation. I shall see with sincere satisfaction the progress of those sentiments which tend to restore to man all his natural rights, convinced he has no natural right in opposition to his social duties. I reciprocate your kind prayers for the protection and blessing of the common Father and Creator of man. What? The president believed in a common Father and Creator of man, and he appreciated the prayers on his behalf and tender you for yourselves and your religious association assurances of my high respect and esteem. So there you have it. President Jefferson was the first one to use the phrase separation of church and state. So what can we say about this letter from President Jefferson? President Jefferson believed that religion was between a man and his God. He also believed man is not accountable to government or another person in regard to his religion. Furthermore, President Jefferson believed that the legitimate power of government was limited to men's actions and not their thoughts. And this is a very important distinction. Government is not given authority to control our thoughts. Government is only given authority to judge our actions based upon the rule of law. President Jefferson also believed that the will of the people, expressed in the First Amendment to the Constitution, And here's what it says: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That amendment, the way it's worded, to protect the rights of citizens, built a wall of separation between church and state. But what kind of wall was it? By linking this statement about a wall of separation directly to the First Amendment to the Constitution, President Jefferson was defining this phrase in terms of the words found in the First Amendment respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. By its very wording, the First Amendment, indeed all the amendments, are restrictions on government and not on citizens. I need to say that again. The amendments to the Constitution are restrictions on government, not on citizens. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution limit the power of government, not the power or rights of citizens. Congress shall make no law. So the subject of this wall, the purpose of this wall, the intention of this wall is to keep Congress out of the lives of the people and prohibit Congress from interfering in the lives of the people, except in those areas where the law has already been established, not based on what people think, but based on what they do. The separation of church and state, as defined by the First Amendment to the Constitution, prevents the government from interfering with the church. However, it does not prevent the church, through its individual members, to participate in government. I want to say that again. The First Amendment to the Constitution prevents the government from interfering with the church, but it does not prevent the church, through its individual members, to participate in government. The wall of separation is a restriction on government, not a restriction on the church or its members. Here's more from President Jefferson. I will see with sincere satisfaction the progress of those sentiments which tend to restore to man all his natural rights. You see, the whole reason that the United States of America was founded was because men wanted to restore the natural rights of people. Did they do it all at once? Did they do it completely from the very beginning? Obviously not. If they had done it completely from the very beginning, they would have eliminated slavery before the Constitution was adopted. But there were fighting powers that they could not overcome at that time. So instead of dealing with those issues at the very beginning, they left that argument for another day in order to get the nation established. Did they ever address those issues? Yes, they did. That's why 50 or so years later, we had a civil war. Don't misunderstand anything here. There were people living at the time the Constitution was adopted who were 100% opposed to slavery. They wanted to eliminate slavery, but they had opposition. Just like today, there are people who oppose modern day politicians who want to preserve the liberty and freedom of every citizen in the United States. They couldn't get it all done in one day, so they got done what they could do in the day in which they lived and left it for us to take care of the rest later. And that's exactly what we should be doing, is ensuring the liberty and freedom and rights of individual citizens in the United States of America. I will see with sincere satisfaction the progress of those sentiments which tend to restore to man all his natural rights, convinced he has no natural right in opposition to his social duties. Now, I got to be honest, when I first read that, it kind of threw me for a loop. What are you talking about here, President Jefferson? What social duties are you talking about? Well, if you go back and you read the letter, first from the Danbury Baptist Association, and then read this response from President Jefferson, you find out that the social duties that President Jefferson was referring to here came from what the Danbury Baptists had said in their letter. This is what the Danbury Baptists said: the legitimate power of civil government extends no further than to punish the man who works ill to his neighbor. Do you see how that agrees with what President Jefferson said earlier? That the legitimate power of government extends only to a man's actions and not to his thoughts or opinions? That's what President Jefferson meant when he said he was convinced that citizens have no natural right in opposition to their social duties. What is their social duty? The social duties Jefferson wrote about concern no man working ill toward his neighbor, but loving his neighbor as himself. By such a statement, Jefferson was saying that no man has a natural right to do harm to his neighbor. The wall of separation between church and state is a wall that is designed to protect the church from government and protect the inalienable rights of citizens. Thomas Jefferson said these words to assure the citizens of the United States of the protection of their rights by the government, to prevent the denial and violation of their rights by the government. Let me say that again. Thomas Jefferson said these words to assure the citizens of the United States of the protection of their rights by the government and to prevent the denial and violation of their rights by the government. And here's the full text of the First Amendment for your edification. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for the redress of grievances. So Thomas Jefferson was the first to use the phrase separation of church and state, and he in no way, shape, or form intended that separation to put any obstacles in the way of the church, but to limit the power of the government from violating the rights of its citizens.